Husband know that I'm on camera. I'm going to just hit the mute. Okay, that's done. Sorry about that. I was thinking about, a friend was saying she had a craving for soft serve ice cream, and I started thinking the only way you get soft serve ice cream is when you go to the junk food, fast food places. And my first thought was, oh, don't eat that stuff. Just don't eat that stuff. Because all it really is corn syrup and gelatin and various emulsifiers and preservatives and lots of whipping. And it's some frozen ice. It's probably has some milk solids in it for flavor, but really, it's industrial waste turned into an ice cream. It's insane, and they're not even allowed to use any dairy terms in it because there's so little milk in there. Certainly no cream. The fats are made up with things like palm kernel oil, the one that's killing the orangutans and destroying jungle. Yeah, you want to avoid buying stuff with palm kernel oil. Now, if you have a specific need specifically for palm kernel oil, choose a place that farms it responsibly. You can find that. You can find responsible farming practices for palm oil, using places that have already been farmed. But we need to reduce the demand for it so they'll stop building new plantations, which is causing the problem. Also, the way you farm in the jungle, the soil relies so heavily on a layer of compost that it's actually pretty weak. I mean, and the plants, they grow so fast, they deplete the soil very quickly. So in the tropics, what they do is move the entire field to a new chunk of jungle using fire to burn the jungle, which, of course, because it's not composting slowly, means that the soil is even more depleted. A lot of it went up in the air. So enough about palm kernel oil. I started to realize there was another very good reason not to have that soft serve. And that applies in general to the whole thing of why we shop locally. Now, the number one thing to understand is that our society is now utterly controlled by the commercial interests. Make no mistake, we still have some governmental controls, but for a lot of us, those things are so weak and ineffective that we just stand by in shock as yet another corporate interest is served against our own. You know what I'm talking about. Every time you hear about a family being kicked off welfare because there's not enough money, and at the same time, the bank's been bailed out for billions, or a factory, or some other corporate thing, and then like the next year, they've taken it offshore anyway. They're not even employing the Canadians that they pleaded for. It's like, oh, we're too big to fail. All these Canadians are being employed. They'll all wind up on welfare. So you got to give us the welfare, and then we'll create the employment, and we'll keep them gainfully employed, which, after all, if you're going to spend the money on the welfare, it's better to do it that way. That's the reasoning of bailouts. And then within a year, they're like, well, we're restructuring. We just can't afford to make a go of it the way we've been doing. Yeah, think? So what? We bought a year more? And then they, go find cheap labor elsewhere. And of course, the answer isn't to reduce wages either. For us all to learn to live on less. We may well have to learn to live on less, but that's not the way to solve this problem of corporate welfare and going broke. Now, in your town, you have these businesses, from the great big corporations that don't even franchise, through the franchisees, where you buy everything from the corporation, but you personally take all the liability and all of the work onto your own shoulders and get a marginal bit more profit. You get a little richer than you would have been if you were just a manager. I think that's how a franchise works. And then down to the guy who works all day in a store, possibly hiring a few people. He sources his products from the people who walk in the store, like a place like Twig and Squirrels here in town, where they sell everything from organic things like cocoa butter and various simple foods that it's hard to get quality at the local grocery stores, this kind of thing. They're not a grocery store, more of a giftware store. But all of the giftware is made locally by local artists. As much of the dried food supplies, little chocolate bars and things that she also adds are from local people. The things that can't be grown locally, of course, ultimately come from somewhere else, but she makes sure that they're fair trade organic. And remember, organic isn't just about whether it gives you cancer, it's also whether it's giving its own environment cancer. So, you just might actually be buying something that caused the extinction of a number of insects in some other country because you didn't buy organic. So that's one of the reasons to do it. So when you buy from somebody who hires local people as best she can, who makes all her own profit, who sources and purchases all of her or his product from the local area as best as possible, what you're doing is you're keeping your disposable income in your community. Your disposable income, all of the money that goes above and beyond what it takes to survive, that is your vote, and that is your power. That's your community's power. Now, when you go to that shop, that ice cream shop in the corner, instead of that one that has burgers, I'm deliberately not naming any of these large corporations, but you know who they are. You know who they are. Don't go there. It's convenient. But in point of fact, there's an equally convenient solution located in a local restaurant, store, cafe, probably near you. You just haven't been paying attention because it's not familiar. You give them your money, well, you're keeping the disposable income locally. Your disposable income becomes his disposable income, and he's shopping in town too. He might be the guy who can now afford to hire you to do your trade. So, whatever it is that you do, whether you're an accountant or you're a doctor or you're a tradesperson or you're a seller, whatever it is that you do, by giving your dollar to your neighbor instead of the franchisee who sends it off to Chicago or Montreal or Vancouver or New York or Los Angeles or Hong Kong, all these great big cities where they have more than enough disposable income to go around, as we see from the videos and footage that we see of people riding around in gold Mercedes and, spending ridiculously, right? We look at them, and on the one hand, we want to aspire to be them because it looks like a nice lifestyle. But on the other hand, I know that every last one of us feels a little angry because we have the sense somewhere in the back of our mind that if that guy would take less of the pie, we'd struggle less ourselves. And it's true. And he's not taking the pie, you're giving it to him. Every time you go to that fast food restaurant, that big box store, you're giving him your piece of the pie. Nibble by nibble, you're feeding it. And then you go, why do I have so little? Well, you sent it off to some faraway country, to some faraway city. You didn't keep it in your own backyard. You didn't keep it home. Keep your disposable income at home whenever you can. Hey, I just bought some accordion reed boosters off of eBay, but not until after I had spoken to the local repair shop and gotten a no, we can't get that, you should get it off eBay. And I'm willing to pay up to 25% more for all of my goods to shop local. And that's something you should be thinking about too, is it's not going to be as cheap. And that's the whole point. That's the reason that stuff is so cheap, is because they're being cheap back with us. We're getting cheap product. The production is being done cheaply. The people they're hiring are barely scratching a living. All of that, so you can have an extra box of mac and cheese, it's not right. And you have the power. You can call it blame, you can call it responsibility, but what it really is power. And you're giving it away, and they're not giving it back. So make every effort you can to find a local person to solve your problem. Even if it means that they order on eBay and you pay them. If they're running an operation, if they're going to the trouble to hire accountants, to keep track of the GST, to pay for liability insurance, to pay for all of the overhead that it takes to run a business, if they're going to that much trouble anyway, support them. If enough of you do that, they'll even hire someone. Maybe your kid will get a job because you shop locally. Think about it. Keep your resources at home. That's today's rant. Go have some ice cream. It's hot out.